Subtle skills, big results.
Welcome to the Ninja Selling Podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ninja Selling Podcast. He is Garrett. I am Matt. Garrett, good morning, sir.
Good morning, my friend. How are you today?
I'm doing great. And we got a fun episode here for everybody. And if you guys are brand new to the podcast and you're new to ninja selling and you're like, what is this about? Head over to ninjaselling.com. You can learn all about training and coaching and all of the things that are available. And you'll get all of that information right there. So thank you guys for tuning in. Garrett, what do we got today, man? We got a special episode here. We're over 580 episodes. We've learned a lot over the 5.5 years of producing this podcast. And
yeah,
we've learned a lot.
We've learned a ton. And that's Matt and I were getting ready for this morning. We were kind of sitting around and we were talking about consistency. We were talking about the things you learn over time and how you grow as individuals. And we've talked about this on other episodes, Matt, where we watch people in our industry and you go, wow, like I'll never be like that person. I'll never be running at that level. And it's interesting to watch, as we've grown through this podcast and as we've made episodes, it's really amazing to look at where we came from to where we're at right now, and the consistency and the showing up. And I want to tie this all back into all of you that are listening out here right now, and wherever you are on your real estate journey, wherever you are in your life journey, your health journey, relationships journeys, I want to tie this back into, how are you showing up and how are you being consistent to those roles that are important to you? Let's kind of break down, Matt, our look at 580 plus episodes. And at one point we were like, how do we do this?
Yeah. I mean, back when we started this, at least the discussions and the production of it in 2018. And it was, okay, how do we start a podcast? And what are we going to call it? Where are we going to host it? How are we going to distribute this? How are we going to produce it? And we started as Ninja Coaching Coast to Coast.
By the way, thank you, Matt, because you were like, I'm on it. And you came back with like, okay, here's where we're going to host it. Here's what this is going to look like. Here's how this goes. I was like, thank goodness, man, I got you in my world, because this probably would not have come to life.
Well, and it's funny when you start things too, whether it's a new venture or a new system that you're going to deploy in your business, there's a lot of I don't knows that are there. And then there's a lot of testing and there's a lot of experimenting and there's a lot of failures. I mean, when in the early days of editing this episode too, editing this podcast, I would sit there and I remember calling you one time because I had spent hours editing something and then the program glitched on me and deleted the whole thing. And I was just like, I am so upset. I need to go out for a run right now and just leave this because I've spent hours editing and now it's gone.
And I think that, that's the, when you're first getting started and trying to do it yourself, trying to, you're not outsourcing yet. You're not at a place of like, I feel comfortable spending money on having somebody help me with this. So I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to do it all myself. And we would have gotten bogged down a long time ago if it was all us. And there was that moment of like, we need to get some help around this thing.
Yeah.
Because watching you do that and the show notes and, Sarah was doing all the artwork in the background with those episodes. And as they go out and she was, attaching different things onto them and cleaning them up a little bit. Like it was multi people kind of trying to make this work. But there was that one point where we're like, we need to get a professional involved in the background here. And that was good for you, man.
Well, and that was years later. And I think, some of the things where we ran into challenges, like that would be easy enough reason to be like, all right, maybe this isn't, worth it. Right. We were excited to have 10 downloads in the beginning. Right. And now we're over 3.5 million, something like that.
Do you remember all the episodes? Because we started recording in 2018.
Right.
And I think we started around October of 2018, and we started putting down episodes that we're like, let's just experiment. And there were some that we did. I remember talking with you and going, that was the wrong feeling. That's the wrong energy. Or we went down a different path that was like, no, that doesn't feel right. And then we had some were like, that was awesome. Like you could see that little moment of like this is going to work. Like there's something cool here. And there was one episode we did that we're like, that one can never see the light of day. Like that one. We went on a rant, a crazy rant, and I'm not even going to touch on who or what it was about. But we went on a crazy rant. We're like, nope, that one's not going out.
Yeah, we should probably pull that one out. But you know what? Like you look at all that and relating this to how people operate in their business and their real estate business. A lot of times, people will run into challenges or whatnot, and they use that as a barrier to be like, all right, I guess I'm just going to stop doing this instead of pushing through and using those practices, using those experiences to be like, all right, let me get back out there and do this again, right? Because
Yep.
with the editing, eventually I had to come back to the chair and sit down and start over again and do it, right? And that actually led to Sarah being like, hey, have you ever thought of using this program that doesn't glitch out as much? I was like, oh, that sounds like a good program to do, but that one's not free. It's like, well, okay, maybe it's time to invest a little bit of money into using a professional grade program. And we do this in our business. I see a lot of agents being like, oh, I can't do this myself. It's too frustrating. So I'm just going to stop. Instead of saying, where can I make an investment into my business to help me move beyond this if it is now at a point where it's like, I just don't have the time, or I don't want to make the time, or it's too stressful. And these are good moments to think, okay, let me invest and let me grow, right? I mean, you see this all the time with the people you coach, Garrett.
Oh yeah, and you get there's bottlenecks that start to show up. And when you find those bottlenecks, it's like, okay, can we change our process to make something more smoother? Can we bring somebody in to help us? And this has been part of this journey of trying to figure out where's the right places to bring people in. Now I want to go back to the episodes we did early on. The voice that I need to get out is don't practice on your people. Don't practice on your people. And that message, I think, really resonated with me as we were recording episodes that were never really being released. And for me, that was our moment that I could sit with you, Matt, and go like, okay, we're putting in the time up front to make sure that we at least can show up like we sort of know what we're doing
Yeah.
and launch this thing and get going and hopefully have people that want to tune in. And then, yeah, as the thing grows and you said, our first downloads, I remember for some reason, 127 really resonates with me. I remember you calling me and going, dude, we had 127 people listen to the episode. And I was just like, oh my gosh, people like us. Like, this is so cool. and so it's fun to see that this transition here. But then, it's funny, we talk about what makes most podcasts fail is that people aren't consistent with it and they don't show up.
Mhm.
And you look at like businesses, you look at real estate businesses and you wonder, now I'm not going to say fail, but you watch real estate businesses where all of a sudden somebody's walking around going, I've got no business, I've got no business, I've got no business. Like, what happened? Why did the faucet get turned off? Well, I wasn't being consistent with the systems that grow my business. I stopped doing the things that generate new business. Oh, I should probably get back to that again. Now, in a podcast, when you don't record episodes, it just dies. Your listeners go, where'd they go?
Right.
And we can't find them anymore. So we're going to go do something else. But in the real estate world, you can turn it back on. You can just jump back in. Now, interesting with me saying that is that if you are consistent in your real estate world, like, this is where exponential growth comes out. This is where I always tell people, like, your systems need to come first. The things that grow your business, the business you created, you got to figure out a way to fit that in with the time you have remaining. But the real stuff, the real business you have, we did a whole episode on this about your real true business is your stuff that is growing it. It is your phone calls, it's your notes, it's your all that stuff. That is truly what you do. The real estate's a byproduct. And for us, like, what we truly do is we record content. The people that listen and all the stuff that comes around, that's the byproduct of it. And we just, you got to be consistent. You got to keep showing up. And it's probably the biggest downfall for podcasters. And it's the biggest downfall for a lot of people that we see growing their business.
Yeah, I agree. And I think adding that element of frequency on top of that is important too, because you can be consistent in doing phone calls once a year, right? Or you can be consistent in doing phone calls every single week. You can be consistent in producing a podcast once a month, and it's going to get a certain amount of result, right? And be like, well, I'm consistent. It's like, but what's your frequency? What's your cadence? How often are you doing these things? And I think that's where, looking at the real estate roller coaster, people will be like, well, I'm consistent for a period and then I fall off and then I'm consistent for a period. I'm like, listen, you're actually really consistent at doing bursts of efforts, right? Because you can see it in your business. And so we need to transition your consistency from these bursts to a consistent, smooth flow of communication that's going to allow you to receive a consistent, high frequent flow of results into your business, right? And I think that's an element that some people don't think about is how frequent am I doing these things and what frequency works for me? Because it can be different, right? Different people will have different success. Example, like if Joe Rogan was producing a podcast once a month, somehow he switched into that cadence, right?
Yep.
As like the number one podcast that, people know about, he's probably still going to do pretty good at once a month.
Yep.
If we move to once a month, it's going to produce a much different result for us than it would for him.
I think the appropriate person to use is Casey Neistat. If anybody watches Casey Neistat, he's an awesome vlogger on YouTube. And that guy used to put out, I think, a video once a week. Like he was cranking.
Oh, he was doing the daily vlog.
That's
he
right.
used to do them every single day.
Daily stuff going out. There's probably one that goes out every, 3 months right now is typically what I see him kind of put out content. He's changed up his entire game. I think he's actually getting back into doing more of it again. But there was a long time that there was this huge void. And it was funny because I enjoyed it so much and it became part of my world. When one of them would show up, I'd be like, new one. Like I would get so excited and the views on it were over the top. But if you also listen to any of his interviews, the time that he put in to build the foundation of that is insane. Like it is not like I flipped the switch and all of a sudden I had 9 million. I think it's 12 million subscribers now on YouTube to his channel.
It's a lot.
You start looking at that and going, that's not a flick of the switch. That is a long-term investment of time and consistency. And yeah, you get a lot of freedom. You're really consistent up front. We watch this in real estate businesses, people that put in their time and they build and they build and they build and they build. And you watch these people and you're like, well, business, she's just successful. She barely even shows up. She's barely even around the office and just doing deals all the time. That wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
That was a lot of consistency over a lot of time. And every once in a while, there's a little it doesn't add up. But if you ask more questions, it's like, oh, they have a parent that's uber connected in town that's put in the foundation and they're reaping the benefits of the real estate business because of the parents' long-term. That there is a foundation there, maybe not built by this person, but it always leads back to consistency somewhere where it was built and was done over and over and over again to build that foundation.
Yeah. And that's where it's very important also to be self-aware and understand that, what other people are doing to produce results isn't necessarily always comparative to what you're going to do to produce results. And the best thing that you can do from a comparison perspective is to compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And hey, am I doing something to grow this? Am I increasing my cadence? Am I increasing frequency? Am I increasing consistency? Am I changing the quality? And am I moving it up? And that's going to be probably one of your best measures to build upon, right? And I think about, coming back to us reflecting on this podcast journey is, we've had all different moments. I mean, one thing that we've been really good at is 2 episodes a week, making sure that happens, right? They were like, if anything, that's going to be our baseline. And we've had some episodes that have been awesome and we get texts from people. And we've had some that were like, oh, this is going to be a great episode. And we hear nothing, right? It's like, okay, you're going to have some home runs. You're going to have some base hits and you're going to have some strikeouts. That's going to happen in your journey when you increase the volume, and that's okay too. And there are some episodes that I even have forgotten about that we've done. And there's some that just always stick in my head. I'm like, that was just such an awesome episode where maybe I got a lot of joy out of it, but maybe the audience didn't get as much, right?
It's like that band that makes a song and goes, this is our hit. This is going to be huge. And nobody knows it. It's like, oh, well, we enjoy that song. It's our favorite song to play.
Yeah. Well, on that subject too, I would love to hear from the audience, Garrett. I mean, you guys some of you have listened to every single episode, which is incredible. And I'm so grateful for this incredible audience that we have, Garrett. I would love to hear from y'all. Like, what have you loved? Reach out to us and tell us, like, what have been your experiences with the podcast? Because the other side of this is, and you can apply this to your real estate business, is you only know the impact you have if you communicate with the people that you're creating for or adding value to, right?
Yep.
And so we would love to hear from you guys. I want to know, what's your favorite episode? How did you get into the podcast? What have you taken away from it? How have you applied it to your business and to your life? That would be great, awesome feedback for us.
Well, and I think, this, when I tie this back into the real estate world, I think this ability of self-checking and kind of knowing how is your service being, how are your people resonating with the service that you're providing? And a lot of times it's not done enough. And the other thing that I think you get into as a business owner sometimes is, this is the way I do it. This is my plan. I've set it up this way. This is the structure of how I help my listings and the services that I provide when I list a property. This is, and you can take this into any other industry, different companies that are out there, of like restaurants, of like, this is just how we do it. That's my grandmother's recipe. That's the one we serve. That's the way we do it. Well, I think it's good to check in every once in a while and say, but yeah, is it working?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the menu, but nobody likes it. But nobody, every time somebody orders it, it gets sent back. Like, maybe we don't have that on the menu anymore. So I think what's working and what's not is a really good thing to check in on in your business, and get yourself out of that, but this is just how I do it, or this is how other people do it. And this is where I find, Matt, where in what we watch in our coaching and people we work with, where they're like, just give me somebody else's thing that works for them. And it's like, yeah, just because it works for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Right.
And this is the opportunity to say, we can apply and we can learn and gather from others. But once you apply it into your business, this is where you need to step back every once in a while and say, well, what's working? And Matt, for us with the podcast, we've done this a lot, where we put an episode out and we'll get massive responses from it, massive feedback. And it's funny, there are clues that are left along the way. It's like, oh, people really like that. That's interesting. Interviews over time, Matt, we've talked about that. When we interview people, and it's funny, when we interview people, a lot of times people think that the top producers that are smashing it out of the park, that are hitting these really high numbers, is what people want to hear. And it's not. You all across the board consistently have come to us over and over again and say, I don't want to hear about the person that has it all figured out and is setting records. I want to hear about the person that's on the journey figuring it out. That, yeah, they might starting to see successes and seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. They might have just started to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but they're like, I don't want to know about that. I want to know about where they were and how they got there.
Yeah.
And that is things like Matt and I have learned over time as we've grown through this podcast. And I think you got to be willing to adjust. You got to be willing to course correct. You got to be willing to, turn the ship in a little bit different direction that's still getting you to your final outcome, but you're able to communicate with people better, offer better service, deliver better information. And this is true in a changing market of real estate. I watch a lot of people out here right now that are stuck in this, but this is the way I did it. Why is it not working anymore? Because the tides have changed. The ocean's different right now. Like, it's not the same journey you're on. You need to course correct as you go through these things. And it's not always going to be the same tools and the same energy you're going to need to put into it. But you got to learn. You got to be willing to ask questions. So, Matt, I love it. If anybody can share their favorite episodes, their favorite, as we've been on this journey, and we would love to know and hear from all of you. And I'll even go, if there's things that you're like, I can't stand it when Matt does this, I want to hear that too.
Absolutely. 100%. We want to hear that stuff.
We've had those.
For sure.
This is another element. And I know I've been sitting here just chanting, but Matt, let's talk about also what happens when people give you unfavorable feedback.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because we've received some stuff like that over time.
We got hit square between the eyes one time. Matt had an uppercut and I was hit straight in the nose.
And, the initial reaction that we have when we're criticized is defense, right? We're like, whoa, no, that can't be right. And I've learned certainly through many, many different things that I do, that taking a moment to try to be as objective as possible and be like, well, let me understand exactly what this person is saying, because if I can learn from this and improve, that's great. Or is this feedback that, maybe is just this person has something that they want to share and it's not universal, right? And you have to be really, really objective. And you also have to decide, well, who do I want to be? If it's a structural change or something that you're going to change that's going to help you be better of who you want to be, awesome. But if it's something where somebody's also asking you to be a different person than who you are, you have to make a decision sometimes of like, am I going to, and this is, I heard Leila Hormozy on Ed Milet's podcast recently, and she said a question she asks herself when she's making big decisions or understanding feedback is, if I make this change, will I feel better about myself? Right. And I'm like, ooh, but that's a really good question to ask, because
Yeah.
if when you make that decision, make that change, if you feel better about yourself, then it's probably part of your core values. Right. If you don't, then you're probably going against something with your own core values. But hard feedback is great to receive, Garrett. I mean, because we have grown with some of the feedback, and we've become, I believe, better podcasters. We've become better at how we converse, how we banter back and forth, even going into how do we speak so that it makes editing easier, so that these podcasts just sound better, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I've had lots of people ask that we talk more about cars. They've said, if you can make more car analogy, that's been a joke that's come up through criticism out there. But I watch a lot of people in their businesses that they receive negative feedback and they course correct. Like that was the information they needed, and they were going this entirely new direction based off one person's opinion that happened about your business. One thing you might have said that caught them in a weird way, and all of a sudden we changed the entire platform. And I watch it in real estate all the time, where something wasn't received well and they're like, well, I'm never doing that again. And it's like, well,
Ooh, good point.
how did you deliver it? Like, what did you say? What did you do? There's a dialogue I've had people use for years about basically when you're in the point of a place where you can receive a referral in a transaction, how do you handle it? Well, if delivered the wrong way, yeah, you can get a really negative response. You can have your own personal baggage attached to it. And now it feels really salesy, where if you do it the right way, it's very much service oriented. And you have this person that's receiving it in the wrong direction. You're like, well, I'm never, ever doing that again. Instead of saying, well, okay, that didn't work, but maybe how can we do it differently? We'll take it back to a racetrack, because it's fun. There are corners, like when I have my team and we're out racing, there's certain corners that give us challenges. And we'll all as a team and we'll talk about it, and we'll be like, oh man, I'm always out of line in that corner. I'm always death gripped on the steering wheel, sliding off. I can see the wall coming, and last minute I just, every time this corner makes me nervous when I go through it. And then you'll watch one of our teammates that figures out the corner. And all of a sudden they're like, guys, I got it. I got it. You're approaching the corner wrong. You should be over here instead of over here. This is the exact point in when you need to start braking, because that will then set you up for this point of the corner. And at this point of the corner, you're going to grab that steering wheel. And because you've had so much weight now loaded on the front of the car, you can grab that steering wheel and crank it as hard as you want. And promise me, guys, the car will turn. Like, it will turn. There is grip there. This is how you go through the corner. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, we figured it out. It's very easy, though, with the feedback that we're all getting. We can all just be like, we just need to be careful through that corner. Like, that's just a bad corner. We just need to be careful with it, instead of learning and figuring it out and asking questions. And I would look at that corner, and everything I just said to you is like every piece relates perfectly to a dialogue that you might be trying to use that's not working for you. And you could either just try to avoid the corner and stay away from it, or avoid the dialogue and stay away from it. Or you can say, you know what? Maybe I need to approach this a little bit differently. Maybe I should be, different inflection, different energy, different doing through parts of this dialogue. And all of a sudden it works. All of a sudden it's like, oh, There it is. I've unlocked it.
Yeah.
And I think that this is a big part of as you guys grow. And it's what we've learned is going through this, Matt.
Yeah. Yeah, man. We've learned a whole lot, and what an incredible journey it has been. And it's been an absolute pleasure to be on this journey. And like we said before, we'd love to hear from people about what they've gotten out of this journey with us on this podcast. Gosh, man, it's been so much fun doing this with you. And from the day that we started and we were like, we're going to start a podcast, to now, over 580 episodes, 5.5 years in, man, looking forward to doing even more with you, Garrett.
Yeah, man, I am so looking forward to all the future episodes and everything we're going to be creating. And we have some incredible ideas. And Matt, I appreciate you, man, so much. And it helps to have somebody to show up with. And for me, that's been a huge part of being consistent over 580 plus episodes. Is we don't need to text each other the night before and say, hey, man, are you going to be there? Or, hey, does this still work for you? There's a lot of times Matt and I just go to bed and I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and shower and step in front of the camera and turn it on, and smiling face is already there, man, ready to go. So
it helps that I get 3 hours ahead of you on the East Coast too. So
you've been up. This is easy for you.
I've been up for a while though.
You've been running around doing other stuff, but again, it's been a pleasure, man. And again, you're a big part of helping me be consistent in doing this, because I know you're there. And it's like going to the gym. It's like doing anything. It's good to have people around you that hold you accountable and push you to grow and expect better out of you. And I think that's something we've done with each other since we first started this, is when one of us is going down the wrong path or talking too much, which I have a tendency to do, it's good to call each other out every once in a while and say, hey, you know what? Tone that back a little bit or bring a little bit of this. And you've been great, man. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you, man. I echo the same thoughts and everything, and really appreciate this audience that's tuned in to us for years and hundreds of episodes, who've contributed to the community that we've built and have been an amazing part of this incredible journey of ours. So thank you so much.
With that being said, for all of you that are listening to this and you're wondering where all this comes from, if this is your first time tuning into the Ninja Selling Podcast, you can go to ninjaselling.com, learn about that there. You can go check out the Facebook community that Matt was just talking about. And there's 16, almost 17,000, I think, people. There's a lot of people in there.
Lots.
And like-minded people that listen to the podcast. So we appreciate to have you there, sharing your great thoughts, your great energy. And in the meantime, Matt, appreciate you, man. Appreciate everybody out there. And thank you so much for always tuning into us.
We'll see you guys soon.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like more, visit us at theninjasellingpodcast.com.
There you will also find links for more information about ninja selling and coaching. Have an incredible day.